Hello, boys and girls. I can't be here today, but you have a wonderful substitute, and so I expect that you're going to treat her with respect, just like you do me. Let's get started with our lesson. We're doing clay today. I know you're going to be really excited. We're going to take a look at claymation and see how claymation artists make their art, and then you're going to get an opportunity to play with some clay. So today we're learning about claymation. We're going to work with careful details and we're going to earn extra credit. The way you get extra credit is your substitute's feedback. So your substitute is going to write me a list of names. And so make sure that you tell her your name if she asks. And it's going to be a list of students who made the day really awesome, students who were extra helpful, and those students are going to get extra credit. She's also going to write me a list of names of students who were made the day difficult. And so you do not want your name on that list. You will lose points if your name is on that list. So I expect that you'll be on your best behavior. And the way to do that is to listen to directions, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, be kind to your substitute, show respect to each other, show respect to yourself, show respect to your substitute, and get in the art zone. The art zone is where you are more focused on your art and not as focused on your friends. You guys know what the art zone is. You should be able to get into it. When you are doing your art, the volume level should be quiet talking. It's not indoor recess. All right, creative claymation, let's go. So stop motion claymation, it's photos. So they take a picture, look at number 1. So that's a photo. Then they move his leg a little bit and take another photo. They move his leg more, take another photo, and so on and so on. And then when you put those photos together really quickly, it's like a flip book. So when you do a flip book, it looks almost like it's a video, like it's moving. And that is how stop motion clay animation works. So these are all films that have used stop motion. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Paranorman, Coraline, Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run, and Robin Robin. I don't know that one. Do you guys know that one? I know the rest of them. But anyway, that's clay that they're then manipulating and moving around and taking a million photos of to put together. Here's some more. Kubo and the Two Strings, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Shaun and the Sheep. We got Isle of Dogs, Nightmare Before Christmas. I know that's a lot of your favorites. And we also have Pirates, Band of Misfits. It's another one I don't know. Sorry for the sound. Let me see if I can turn that off. Okay, we're going to take a look at what stop motion is and how it works.
Oh, somewhere deep inside of these bones, an emptiness began.
Stop motion, sometimes called stop frame, is an animation technique that's existed for over 100 years. Filmmakers realized early on that they could create amazing illusions by stopping and starting their cameras. Objects, clay, puppets, and even people can be animated. The principles are always the same. Place something in front of a camera and take a picture. Move it slightly and take another picture. Do this a bunch more times. When you string these images together, the object appears to move. Typically, 12 frames create 1 second of stop-motion animation. By varying the amount you change the object between frames, you can make it appear to move slower or faster. This is the most basic principle of animation. Puppets are a little more complicated to animate because they have so many moving parts. A puppet must be flexible but able to hold any pose for an extended period of time. Inside is a strong skeleton made of aluminum wire or specially engineered joints. This is called an armature. Even a puppet's clothing usually has wire in it so it can hold gravity-defying poses. Most puppets can't stand by themselves. They must be screwed to the set or supported by a rig that is digitally erased later. Some puppets are built with mouths that can open, but many aren't. To get the fullest range of mouth and facial expression, replacement parts are often used instead. This can be as simple as using stickers for the mouths, or as complicated as swapping the entire head with a new one. That's how Jack was able to sing and change emotion in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Recent films like Paranorman and The Box Trolls have utilized 3D printing to create thousands of replacement parts. In fact, a lot of technology is used to aid in production, such as digital SLR cameras and software like DragonFrame. This software allows an animator to capture images directly to a computer and play their animation back instantly. This is something early animators working on film never dreamed of. But you don't need to invest in all of that technology if you want to make stop-motion animation. Like most things these days, there's an app for that. Vine, for example, has become a popular tool and distribution platform for stop-motion production. Stop-motion animation may be an antique medium, but most people agree it's only gotten better with age. For the latest in stop-motion animation, check out Mashable's latest coverage. And don't forget to watch the other videos in our Mashable Explains series.
All right, that was pretty cool.
Oh, son.
All right, so another little short video for you on how animation works. Animation is different than stop motion. So we're going to see the differences.
How does animation work? Well, animation is what makes cartoons move, and there's plenty of techniques to do that. All animation is made up of frames, or a sequence of images that play back to back, up to 24 per second. In traditional animation, each frame is drawn by hand, first with rough sketches, then with clean lines and color. This was originally done on paper. An artist could flip between drawings to see the motion. Now they draw on computer tablets with digital pens. 2D rigged animation is similar, but instead of creating a new drawing for every frame, each part of a character is drawn once and assembled together to move at pivot points. Animators pose characters by rotating and stretching these pieces, or even swapping them out for new ones. Rigged animation can also use tweening, which is when the animator creates the main poses of an action and the computer helps to fill in the motion between. In stop motion, animators move puppets one frame at a time to capture each pose on camera. Pose the puppet, take a picture. Pose the puppet, take a picture. And when those pictures play back in sequence, the character moves. Stop-motion puppets can bend and twist because they're built with flexible armatures underneath, like metal wires. Computer-generated animation also uses armatures. Digital joint chains create the frame of a character, which is sculpted from a mesh of squares to be fully three-dimensional. Controllers allow animators to rotate each joint, and tweening fills in the motion between poses. Actions are also fine-tuned with motion graphs, which can adjust things like direction and speed. So that's how animation works, and how artists make cartoons move. At least until computers get smart enough to do it on their own, right? Right?
All right.
How does animation...
So I want you to talk at your table. We're going to do some table talk about the difference between animation and stop motion. So do that now. What did you notice? Compare the two videos. You can pause the video now. Hopefully, some of you said something about the speed of each frame. So they said in the stop motion that it's about 1 frame per second. And in animation, it's about 24 frames per second. So it's a lot smoother. It looks like way more like a video. There's no jerkiness because it has so many all in 1 second. All right. Now we're going to look at Walt Disney. So the Disney obviously is probably the most famous company that does animations and cartoons. And we're going to take a look and see how they do it.
Actually, the pre-feature cartoon camera was fairly simple in construction and operation, and generally very satisfactory. Here, a Mickey Mouse short is being put on film. Mickey has been inked and painted on transparent sheets of celluloid. This happens to be a panorama effect where the character will walk in one place and the background keeps moving behind him to create the illusion. Each time a new cell of Mickey is photographed, the background must be moved a fraction of an inch. Photographing each one of these celluloids of Mickey and background makes a single frame of motion picture film. And here's how the action looks on the screen. The problem was how to take a painting and make it behave like a real piece of scenery under the camera. The trouble was we were photographing a flat two-dimensional background. So we set about making plans and blueprints for a new cartoon camera that would overcome this. The different elements in the scene were separated according to their varying distances from the viewer. This put the moon on a plane farthest away from the camera. With our original picture broken down in this manner, it is possible to control the relative speed with which each individual part of it moves to or away from the camera. But the moon remains absolutely still, and so it will always remain the same, neither growing nor shrinking in size. Of course, our cartoon camera does not shoot sideways, but is placed above and shoots downward toward the drawing. Since this new camera used many planes, we called it the multiplane camera.
I would like you to talk with your table group about what is unique that Walt Disney does. What's unique about the Disney cartoons? So do that now. Have a discussion at your table. And you can pause. All right. Some of you might have said about the layers of the frames. So because they aren't able to, manipulate it like a normal set, they will have multiple layers stacked in front of each other. And that way they can either make it closer to the camera or move to the side to give the illusion of movement. So hopefully some of you guys said something about that. So today we are going to practice sculpting and create our own animals. And here are the rules. Keep it school appropriate or lose your clay. There's no second chances. So even if your substitute thinks you are trying to do something that's not school appropriate, they're going to take your clay away. You're going to be really bored. You will just doodle on plain paper from the free choice drawer. You will not be allowed to go on your Chromebook or anything. Just doodle on paper. You're going to be pretty bored. There's no second chances. So don't risk it. Make sure that while you're watching what you're doing, you're being very careful so that no one even thinks you might doing something that's not school appropriate. All right, we are going to be talking about the rest of the rules. Yes, it's a different day for me. I changed a little bit of the rules now that I've taught this lesson a couple times. So let's go through it. Colors. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So there's going to be a bunch of clay packets that are set out for you. And what the substitute is going to do is she's either going to call individuals up first who are having really good behavior today, or tables. By the time you get up there, if the color you wanted is not available, you are not going to throw a fit. You just pick a different color. Once you sit down with your colors, you can open the baggie. You're going to scoop out the clay with your finger. Once you've scooped out most of it, flip your baggie inside out and start dabbing with your clay on the baggie. It will be a contest of who can get the cleanest baggie. I do have to say, in every class, the majority of students get their baggies so clean it looks like they've never been used. After that, you can just throw the baggie away, but make sure you show the substitute if you get one that's like completely clean. That's the goal. Then you are allowed to share in a specific way. So if you take your clay and split it in half, you're only allowed to have one color. You split it in half and your friend splits theirs in half, you can trade. So let's say I have black and my friend has yellow and I want to make a bumblebee. I'm going to split my black in half. She's going to split her yellow in half and we'll trade. Now we both have black and yellow. It just has to be even. So the amount that I give her is the same amount I need to receive back. And so make sure that you're looking at the pieces, roll them into a ball so that you can see the size, and make sure that you get back whatever you give away, and vice versa, that if you're getting something, make sure you give them back the same amount. So you can end up with two colors. Now, if you don't want to change your colors or share your colors, you don't have to. So if someone says, hey, give me half of yours, I'll give you half of mine, you don't have to say yes. You could just keep yours. It's not a problem. The sculpting tool, they are tools, not toys. If you treat them like toys, we take them like toys. You are not going to be touching anyone with the toys. You're not going to be poking anyone. We're not going to be doing sword fights. You're not going to be pushing so hard you break the tools. That is another way to lose your clay. If you're not being responsible with the tools that we give you, you don't get to participate in the lesson today. And don't touch anyone else's clay. The only exception is if someone has asked you for help. If they're like, oh, show me how you did that on my clay, that's fine. But other than that, unless they have explicitly asked you for help, you are not touching anyone else's clay. So the clay works best once it's been warmed up. So we're going to make some random things before we make our animals. I would recommend, if this is my morning class, do not start on your animals until after recess. And if this is the afternoon class, do not start on your animals until after lunch, or later than that, maybe like just before last recess. Actually, yeah, you could do it because your recess ends at 1:40. You could do the animals after last recess. The animals will only take you about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how detailed and complicated you make it. And I don't want you to finish super early. So take as much time as you want doing these next challenges as we warm up our clay. It's supposed to be fun. The goal is just to practice with the clay and practice with the tools. Now let's talk about the tools. There are not enough for everybody to have every tool. So your substitute is just going to kind of randomly hand out the tools. And if your friend has a tool you want to try, you guys can share. Not a problem. All right, let's take a look at some of our challenges. So this first challenge is to take your clay, roll it in a ball, and make smaller balls. So it's going to show a video and then a still frame of it. You'll pause my video on that still frame, and that's when you'll make it. Warm up that clay.
A ball. All I have to do is just squish it and then roll it around in your hands until it becomes ball-like. You end up with lots of seams, don't worry. Always like squish them over. Try to smooth them out with your fingers, but it's not a big deal. So, your first challenge is pinch off parts of your big ball and make small balls. How many tiny little balls can you make?
All right, so you're going to choose just one color. If you have two colors. If you only have one color because you didn't want to trade with anyone, that's fine. You'll just use yours. This is just if you do have two colors. Okay, we are not doing this with both of our colors. Decide what color you would like, set it aside, and with your other color, you're going to make a bunch of small balls and then make something out of them. So in this case, they made a little smiley face. So pause the video and do that now. All right, next.
Now it's time to take your balls and turn them into a face. You might choose to take some of your balls and, well, maybe this is going to be your head. So start rolling it into a ball again. It's kind of ovally. That's okay. Human heads are pretty oval. You can take a pencil. Make yourself a couple of eyeballs. Maybe even a mouth, too. But then you start adding things. For instance, maybe you're going to pinch him into a nose. Whoops. I might need to give myself a new mouth. Or maybe you're going to sculpt him or her a nose. Maybe it's going to be a Pinocchio-like nose. Maybe it's just going to be a simple round ball. Ba-doop. My guy's like a clown. This lighting is terrible. Oh well. And then you can also add hair. Any kind of hair you want. I'm going to go with my classic example, mohawk. Hello, cat. And of course, don't forget to give your dude some ears. Feel free to make your person as absolutely hideous as possible. I'm doing like little half circles for ears. Hey, cat, please don't eat the dough. That applies to children as well. Don't eat the dough. See? So, your next challenge is to make yourself a hideous-looking person, or beautiful, your choice. to take your balls and turn them into...
So, again, you are going to be choosing one color. I know she's using those balls. I would probably use your other color. We're not mixing colors, but we do want to warm up both of the colors of clay that you have. So I would set aside the one you made the balls of. I would just scoot those to the side, and I would use your other one. Start by rolling it in your hands a bit, and then I would use that to pull and make your face. That way we warm up both, but we're not mixing the colors. It's just one at a time. So you can pause the video and do that now. And once you have made your face, we're ready for our next one.
Time to take your dough and attempt to squish it into a cube. For making cubes, I generally start with a circle, high cat, and then we're going to squish it into a cube of cubey shape as much as possible. Cat, I will bet you when this video is done, my cube is not going to be perfect. It's going to be particularly lumpy, and frankly, it looks more like a rectangle with not so pointy fingers, tips. Okay? But this will get us started. So with our cube, now we're going to attempt to practice carving things. So take whatever shape tool you may have. Yours might be pink, yours might be clear, and the pink ones, by the way, come in different shapes. But take whatever tool that you may have and practice carving things into it. Like a quilt, make something new in every single side. I'm trying to carve a happy face. So make yourself a funny looking cube. Might also look like, I don't know, a dice or something.
You can pause the video, make a cube, and then carve something into each side. Pause now. All right, our next step, here we go. And make sure you're alternating your colors. Like set your cube to the side and start using your other color for this rope.
Now we're going to practice making snakes. So squish whatever you got, and we're going to practice rolling. And so for my next challenge for you is to see how long of a rope you can get before it inevitably snaps.
All right, do that now. It says make a new big ball. So you're going to roll it all up and then make a rope. How long can you make it? See who at your table can make it the longest. Remember, you're only using one color. You can pause now to do that. And when you're done, we are now going to sculpt our own animals. Your clay has warmed up. It is ready to be used. We're going to take these animals home with us. This is air dry clay, so you have to be pretty gentle with it till it dries. And once it does dry, it can crack, but hopefully yours doesn't. You're going to be pretty careful with it. And you get to take those home, so that's really exciting. There is a sculpting guide. It is double-sided, and it shows you a bunch of animals that you can sculpt. You can do more than one if you have enough clay for that. You could also make one, and then if you don't like it, you can mush it together again and make a different one. It won't dry right away. It takes a little bit to harden. And then you could also follow along with this video. So in this video, I'll let you know ahead of time. Like I'm going to look at right now and see what animals they're going to show in the video. Hang on just a second. All right, so it looks like it's going to be a cat. This one, they're calling it a robot, but it's definitely from the, what was it, Big Hero 6, I think it's called. This one is a fleck, which I don't know what that is, but there it is. There's a bug. Cute bug. I like the bug. That's probably my favorite. An alien. And a shark. So you can see there's really cool stuff even just with that one color. So I'm going to play this video for you and you can follow along. You don't have to. You can absolutely make your own animal. You don't have to use the guide or this video. It's just for students who want to, if it's helpful.
Hey, Clay.
All right. So take as much time as you need to finish your clay animal. In the meantime, I have a couple of videos just for fun that I'll play, and that'll be it. So enjoy. And if you do finish and you want to be done, you know, you can always do free choice art. You guys know where the supplies are.
Hi, it's Doug. When I was a kid, Saturday mornings were always my favorite. You know why? Because that's when all the best cartoons were on TV. I was a big fan of cartoons like Ghostbusters and Thundercats. You probably haven't even heard of those, but before there was the internet, Saturday morning was the time cartoons were on television. Someone named Azan has a question about cartoons. Let's give Azan a call now.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Azan.
I have a question for you. What is the first cartoon?
That's a great question, and I know the perfect person to answer it. Her name is Brittany Thorson. She makes cartoons at Disney Animation. Let's give her a call now. Hi, Brittany.
Hey, Doug. I heard you had a question for me.
I do, and it's a good one. Azan wants to know, what was the very first cartoon?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I'd be happy to help. Like a lot of you, I love cartoons, so I became an animator. An animator is somebody who takes the cartoons that you watch every day and bring them to life. At my job, I get to work on a lot of different animated shows and movies, and a few of them you might recognize here, like this one. Oh, and this one's one of my favorites. How about y'all? What are some of your favorite cartoons? Now would be a good time to pause the video and discuss. But what about the first cartoon? What was that? Well, before video games and TVs and phones, a lot of people didn't know how to animate, and a lot of people didn't know how to make the pictures move. But still, they tried. Some of our ancestors drew pictures of animals on the inside of caves and tried to make it look like they were moving. Later on, people started to use shadows to tell stories. These shadow puppet shows were especially popular in places like China, India, and Iran. But cave drawings and shadow puppet shows weren't really cartoons. I mean, the shadow puppet shows weren't something you draw, and the cave pictures didn't really move, like the way they do in cartoons today. People just didn't know how to animate their drawings. That's because it hadn't been invented yet. But then, this happened. See how the horse seems to be running? This was a new invention called the phenakistoscope. And when it first came out, people were blown away. They wondered, how are these pictures moving? Phenakistoscope means to trick the eye. And that's exactly what this toy is doing. It's spinning so fast that it tricks you into thinking you're only looking at one drawing. And since each drawing is a little different than the next, you think that it's one drawing that's moving. Now, the phenakistoscope was cool, but only one person could watch at a time. So inventors started thinking of new machines that can make animation even better. Check out this one. It's called a praxinoscope. Since it was bigger, 2 or 3 people could watch at a time. Soon, inventors figured out ways to project animation onto a screen. Now, 10, 20, or even 50 people could watch at one time. These moving drawings of dogs jumping through hoops and clowns playing with hats were pretty amazing. But they were also kind of random, and sometimes, well, they weren't that interesting. Animators wanted to make their drawings even more exciting. One animator had an idea. While walking through a museum and looking at dinosaur skeletons, he started to think, dinosaurs are extinct. No one has ever seen a living dinosaur. All we have are their fossils. But animation? Whoa. Now that we know how to bring drawings to life, could we make it seem like we brought a dinosaur back to life? And better yet, what if I could tell a story about that dinosaur? His idea became Gertie the Dinosaur, the world's first cartoon, and the first time anyone saw a dinosaur come to life. Gertie the Dinosaur tells the story of a shy museum dinosaur, and just like today's cartoons, it had a character and a story. Gertie the Dinosaur was made in the same way cartoons are made today, by drawing thousands of pictures and then flipping through them quickly, a lot like the pictures on the early animation devices. Now that Gertie had come to life, a lot of other cartoon characters followed, like Felix the cat. And this mouse you may recognize. He's been famous ever since he was first created. Pretty soon, cartoons became longer and longer, and they turned into the animated movies you see today. But here's the thing. The longer the cartoon is, the harder it is to make. I mean, it took about 1 million drawings to animate The Lion King. But luckily, we have new technology in place to help us do our work more efficiently. like drawing some of the main pictures on a tablet and having a computer move the rest. In fact, a lot of cartoons you see today are made entirely on a computer, which helps me do my job even better. Animation has come a long way, from the animated toys that trick your eyes, to Gertie the dinosaur, to all the great cartoons that you watch today. It's amazing to see how things have changed. Even so, one thing pretty much stayed the same. We all love watching characters come to life through animation. And that's all for this week's question. Thank you so much, Azon, for asking it.
Hi, it's Doug. When you think of crystals or gemstones, what do you think of? Rubies? Emeralds, maybe? Well, I like to think of these, some of the largest crystals in the world. And they were only discovered fairly recently in a cave in Mexico, about 1,000 feet underground. This week's question comes from someone named Adam. Let's give him a call now.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, Adam.
I have a question for you. How are diamonds made?
That is a great question. Well, it turns out that most diamonds aren't actually made at all. They're something people have to find. Diamonds are just one type of crystal or mineral. Here on Earth, we find so many different kinds. There are thousands of different kinds of minerals, usually found like this, where they're surrounded or stuck inside of ordinary rock. And when we do find these different minerals, they almost always have these amazing shapes, with lots of flat sides like this. That's completely natural. That's how they look when they're found. But some minerals are a lot more rare than others. They're harder to find. The rarest, most beautiful minerals are the ones that we call precious gemstones. These are minerals you've probably heard of. Minerals like ruby, sapphire, emerald, and diamond. Because diamonds are so rare and considered by many people to be so beautiful, they're worth a lot of money. The bigger and more beautiful looking the diamond, the more it's worth. But even a diamond this size can sell for as much as $3,000. Now, diamonds are really hard to find, but when they are found, like most minerals, they're found surrounded or stuck inside of ordinary rock. In the case of diamonds, usually they're stuck inside a type of greenish-brown volcanic rock called kimberlite. Part of why it's so hard to find diamonds is that there isn't a lot of kimberlite on Earth. When people do find kimberlite rock, they start digging and searching, and digging, and digging, and digging. In most places on Earth where diamonds were found, you can see that people have created huge holes where they were searching for more. But if diamonds are so difficult to find, could we actually make them instead of finding them? Well, you and I, we're definitely not the first person to wonder that question, because if you could come up with some way to make diamonds, you'd probably get rich, right? Over the years, lots of people have tried to make diamonds. But to even begin to try, first you'd have to figure out what material diamonds are made of. Is it glass? Some kind of really hard plastic? Before I say anything more, now would be a good time to pause the video and discuss. What material do you think diamonds are made of? Okay, you ready? Nobody could even begin to try to make a diamond without knowing first what diamonds are made of. Well, in the late 1700s, a group of French scientists did an experiment that figured this out. They took a diamond and heated it up using a giant magnifying lens. They were shocked when they found out that as they heated the diamond up, it turned into a type of gas called carbon dioxide. This is the same thing that happens when you heat a piece of charcoal. These scientists realized that diamonds and charcoal are made of the same material. It's a material that in English we call carbon, which is from the French word for charcoal. So does that mean if you had a piece of charcoal, you could turn it into a diamond? In theory, yes, that's exactly what it means. And people tried that for many years. But it never would seem to work out. They kept failing. It turns out what's also needed is an incredible amount of pressure, like what you'd find deep in the earth. It wasn't until around the 1950s that we finally had the technology to create the kind of pressure needed to turn a piece of charcoal into a diamond. Even today, the machines we have, which can create incredible pressure, can only create very small diamonds. But scientists have recently discovered a different method of making diamonds, one that doesn't need a lot of pressure. It could be that in the future, as this technology gets even better, diamonds won't be something rare at all. Not if we can make them. That's all for this week's question. Thanks. Hold on 1 second, just gotta finish writing this down. Hi, it's Doug. Okay, this is probably the biggest pencil you've ever seen, and I don't normally use a pencil this big, but I do like to use pencils instead of pens whenever I write things. Someone named Emiliano has a question about pencils. Let's give him a call now.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Emiliano.
I have a question for you. How are pencils made?
That's a great question. Pencils are everywhere around us today. You probably have one near you right now. But pencils haven't been around forever. Have you ever thought about this? What did people used to write with before there were pencils? Now, don't let your mind go to things like pens or crayons or markers. I'm talking about a time before any of these things were invented too. How did people used to write? Well, one way that many people used to write was with one of these. It's a large feather. It's called a quill, and people would dip that into a jar of ink. You might have heard of this before. Now, to me, it actually sounds kind of fun to write that way. And it can be. People still occasionally write with these just for fun. But why did people stop using them? Well, think about it. Can you see any problems you might run into if you use a feather and a jar of ink to write? Now would be a good time to pause the video and discuss. Okay, you ready? Well, imagine you've got a jar of ink sitting there on your desk. You reach over to dip the feather in the ink jar and whoops, you drip some ink on the page. Or worse yet, what if you accidentally tip over the ink jar and spill it everywhere? To get around this problem, some people thought, well, instead of using a liquid like ink, why not write with something solid? For example, people had known for a long time that if you take a piece of wood and you burn it, it's what we call charcoal, it's actually pretty good at writing. Not only does charcoal not spill, it's also pretty easy to carry around. Charcoal does have some other problems though. Turns out it leaves your hands covered in black soot. And even worse, it's soft and crumbly. Even if you had gloves on when you used it, you'd still get lots of little bits of it all over your paper. Well, enter the pencil. It's funny to think of the pencil as something that had to be invented. But it did. Everything about a pencil has been carefully chosen by someone to solve some of these problems I'm telling you about. You see, you've got this solid writing material there, so unlike ink, it won't spill. But it's encased inside of a piece of wood. So unlike charcoal, when you go to write, it won't get all over your fingers. In fact, that stuff inside a pencil, it's even better than charcoal. The stuff inside it, you hear people call it lead. It's actually a material called graphite. It's similar to charcoal, but it's not as crumbly, so it doesn't leave little pieces all over your paper. We don't know for sure who invented the pencil, but whoever did it must have been really clever. I mean, think about it. Look at this picture of a bunch of unsharpened pencils. How did they get the graphite inside of the wood like that? I mean, what do? Do they carve these long pieces of wood and then drill a tiny hole through the middle? It turns out the secret is to make a sandwich. Not a sandwich you eat, but a sandwich made of wood. This person is showing how some of the first pencils were made. Instead of 2 slabs of bread, he's got 2 slabs of wood, and he's applying glue to them. Then he takes a flat piece of graphite, and he puts it in between the 2 pieces of wood. He presses the top layer on that, and now he's got a type of pencil. So that's what the first pencils looked like. A flat piece of graphite sandwiched between 2 slabs of wood. You just sharpen it with a knife. Now, pencils today look very different, but they're still made the same way. If you look closely at an unsharpened pencil, you can see they're still sandwiches of wood and graphite. Have you ever noticed how some pencils look like they have a little line through them? That's because 2 pieces of wood were glued together, and you can see where they meet. Now, today, most pencils are made by machines in factories, like this. They start with flat pieces of wood. Each piece will be made into many pencils. Saws carve grooves into each piece of wood. Then, glue is squirted into the grooves. Next, it's time to glue in the pencil graphite. Here comes in the graphite, and as it goes around, the machine drops it into the grooves on each piece of wood. Then, another piece of wood flips on top, creating the pencil sandwich. Finally, saws cut apart all the individual pencils. So, in summary, the invention of the pencil solved many of the problems with writing, like ink spilling or charcoal making a mess. That's all for this week's question. Thanks, Emiliano, for asking it.